Righty. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name's Howard Beader. I lead product marketing here at Catchpoint, and I'm very excited to have an amazing guest with us today from GigaOM. Howard,
Yes.
have you introduce yourself?
Sure, sure. Do we need to wait for the amazing guest to join, or should I just go ahead and introduce myself?
You're the amazing guest.
So I'm Howard Holton. I'm the CTO and lead analyst here at GigaOM. I've been at GigaOM about a year and a half. Before that, I was the CIO and CISO for a global industrial manufacturing company. CTO Hitachi Vantara before that, CIO and CISO for a large legal services firm. I go back 18 years in the CXO seat, 35 years in IT overall. I wrote and sold my first piece of commercial software when I was 11 and never left IT. If anybody would like to chat about that, I'm on LinkedIn all the time. Feel free to hit me up there, and we can dig in.
Well, it's very cool. So you've been doing this a little while.
Just a minute or two. Yeah.
So today we've got a very interesting topic we're going to talk about. We're going to talk a lot about internet resilience, because when you think about the internet, what business today really doesn't depend on the internet to operate? And today we're going to make this really more of an interactive discussion. You'll see on the right, you've got both a chat and a QA section where you can actually hit us up, you can ask us questions, and our plan is to really try and respond to as many of the questions as possible. In addition, if you click on the docs section, we actually did a CXO's decision brief with GigaOM, and that is available, and you can click and you can get to that great piece of research right there. So why don't we just jump into it? Let me see if I can stop sharing so folks can see us. There we go. And, first of all, when you really start to think about the internet and how it actually operates and all of the pieces that make up the internet, everything really needs to work in nanoseconds. We all know that, if you hit a site and that site doesn't work and you're trying to buy something, what do? Do you wait and maybe reach out to the company and give them a call and say, hey, your site's slow? Or do you just go find somewhere else to buy it? So really, this resilience matters to businesses today. I mean, Howard, what's your experience with how organizations are really looking at resilience?
I think it's important to start with kind of a foundation. When we study engagement, and anyone that's senior in IT, you really should spend a little bit of time studying engagement. It'll help you in innumerable number of ways. But 200 milliseconds is about what human beings interpret as real time. So that's I click, I get a response in 200 milliseconds or less, right? And so some of that you control. So let's start there. Right? Some of that you control. That's how quick does your application perform on your local network when the RTT is 1 millisecond or less, right? So if you haven't hit 200, if you can't get it under 200 milliseconds, spend some time there. It's really worth the effort. For those of us that aren't on the software teams or not on the application team, however, you still only have 200 milliseconds regardless of kind of where you are in the world, right? And when you think about the series of connected pipes that makes up the intertubes, you really need to think about those things that I don't control. How do I stay on top of them so that I can leverage whatever control I do have to get maximum benefit and minimum latency? Because we are all fighting for eyeballs. It doesn't matter what you do. And the reality is nobody opens a ticket because the site is slow if you're trying to buy something.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's very true. It's very true. Organization, people as a consumer, we're just going to go somewhere else. And speed matters. There's even been as you said, lots of analysis done on website performance. If your website is performing faster, you're going to see more revenue. If it's slower, you're going to lose people.
Yep. How quickly can you get to the information, right?
Exactly.
And quickly is both the kind of UX, right? How good is your user experience design, but also the CX, right? The customer experience, which includes things like latency, rather than just pure kind of number of clicks and feature functionality and modernization. Right?
I mean, in your experience, what are companies doing today to really be able to help ensure the customer experience, to help ensure consistency and resilience, and really help ensure that customers really can complete those transactions, can get the experience that they want to deliver?
I think there's kind of two camps customers fit into for the most part. The first is those that have embraced digital and recognize that digital is a requirement of today, and thus all business needs to be digital business as well, not to the exclusion of, but as well. And they're leveraging kind of every tool they can get their hands on as part of that maturity journey into that path. I don't know of anyone that kind of starts by looking at tools that inspect the internet, the public side of the internet, but though all of those companies have either got there or are getting there, right? And they're really like, they have dedicated CX teams for web experience that are constantly looking. They have like a relatively high escalation level. Like they don't open tier 1 tickets, they open tier 3, tier 4 tickets. They get escalated directly. And those are companies that truly have an exceptional web experience and frankly are in a position to lead the pack on the goal of digital transformation. I know no one likes to hear those two words put together because we're all kind of exhausted, but I'm going to give you a definition of it, and then that will help you understand why. The definition of digital transformation is to change your company to deliver your products in the way your customers wish they could receive them.
Yes.
The wish is absolutely required, but it has nothing to do with becoming digital. It literally has to do with meeting your customers where they want to buy and how they want to buy. And to do that, I have to be focused on what my digital experience is for my customers. And those organizations are absolutely looking at companies like Catchpoint to help them solve that last mile, because that really is, right? The internet is kind of the final frontier, and the ability to monitor and manage and make decisions based on what's happening on networks you don't control is extremely important when you get to that level. Then on the other side, you have those that haven't reached that level of maturity, right? And maybe their e-commerce experience isn't great. Maybe their e-commerce experience isn't even direct, which has to change in today's world,
right?
Even if you'll never sell direct, you still have to be able to communicate directly with your customer and enable them to do business with you as easily as possible, right? And so there's still a ton of organizations that are behind the 8 ball on that, right? That are laggards that are trying to catch up. And I'll be honest, if you're one of those organizations and you don't control the application stack, still looking at something like Catchpoint, right? Something that can help you monitor and understand the internet and what's going on that's keeping your customers from reaching your site as quickly as possible is going to improve your customer experience and allow you to inform internally and externally about what's happening to keep your customers and your business informed of what they can control, should control, and should do differently.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, you brought up the application stack. And what we're seeing today is organizations are spending millions of dollars on the APM side of the house, application performance management or monitoring. But yet, what we talk about here at Catchpoint is the internet stack and all the different layers from, whether it's the CDNs, DNS, edge computing, BGP, etc., that they also need to be monitoring. And it's great they're investing in monitoring the application stack, but if you're not monitoring the performance of your internet stack, you can't even get to the application. Um, with all of those different components, we're seeing, huge number of average disruptions that customers having per month. One of the analysis we did was that e-commerce companies are seeing on average 76 disruptions a month. What can you tell me, or what are you seeing from that aspect regarding the internet stack and those components?
It's not going to get better. I mean, that's the truth, right? The fact is, we're not putting less reliance on the internet. We're not taking things off the public internet. We're putting more and more and more things on these public networks, right? We're putting more things on the electric grid. We're putting more things on the power grid, and that actually makes the very kind of substrate of what we're working with less resilient, not more resilient, right? And if anyone wonders why, just kind of walk outside and look for the construction project that's been near your house for the last 3 years and doesn't seem like it's ever moved, right? In order to make that better, those things have to be done, right? Global warming isn't making it any easier. Climate change isn't making it any easier, right? The hotter it gets, the more unreliable the power grid becomes. The more unreliable the power grid becomes, the more unreliable the internet becomes, right? The good news is there's no single path for any piece of the internet, right? So all of this is like, you can compensate for almost 100% of this. However, in order to do so, you have to be aware, right? And I would say application performance monitoring is really, really important, and probably the first of the two, the first thing that I would do, right? Because you control the application. You should control your application 100%, and so application performance monitoring is a really valuable thing. However, if your APM is up and running, and it's been running for a while, and you're not doing internet performance monitoring, it's probably the next thing you should do.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. No, I completely agree, and that's what we're saying, and the two work in tandem. It's like being able to putting both speakers together so that you're seeing everything or hearing everything in stereo, and that's what really some of our most advanced customers are doing today. One of the more interesting things I saw recently was a map of all of the different cables that really are the fiber cables connecting the internet across the globe, in the bottom of the oceans, everywhere. And a lot of times the internet can go down just because a boat dropped anchor and it grabbed the line and broke that line. We used to hear IT organizations say, "Hey, internet's down. It's not on us," right? Is that really an acceptable answer anymore?
No. And if we're being honest, it really hasn't been an acceptable answer. I would say the only one that's an acceptable answer is Office 365 is down. It's not on us, right? Amazon is down. It's not on us. That doesn't happen very often, but there are definitely some outages where you can absolutely say, yeah, it's not on us. That being said, if the internet is down, it's not on us is your answer. You didn't properly plan, right? The organization didn't properly plan. Like in today's day and age, the CEO needs to be asking, what's our resiliency plan? And at least have enough understanding that 2 is 1 and 1 is none, right? To use that the military axiom, right? If your CEO has never asked, what is our resiliency plan? Is the connectivity to the internet the thing that makes the business work? Do we have resiliency there? Bring it up to your CEO. Like, they should be asking, but bring it up, right? And make sure that they're paying for it or understand the risk to not paying for it. 5 nines.
I think it's a great point. How many companies today that you're aware of are even prepared for an outage?
A lot. a lot. It's much, much better than it used to be, right? I'm seeing a lot more organizations, especially with tools like SD-WAN, have 3 connections as their kind of good level of good enough, their minimum level of viability. That does not work everywhere. I will absolutely say there are places in the world where getting a second connection is difficult, and getting a third, it might as well be impossible. However, with new wireless technologies, that is becoming easier. Fixed 5G is being rolled out in places where getting cabling is just not reasonable, and fixed 5G does provide everything that you need to be at least a secondary or tertiary, if not even a primary connection, right? Things like Starlink can help in places where, right, especially in border areas, right, where infrastructure is either non-existent or unreliable. And so sometimes it does require us to think a little bit out of the box. But today the capability exists, and most organizations that I deal with have kind of done their due diligence and at least have 2. But I still see a lot of organizations where their idea of 2 is same vendor, 2 different transport types. Right. And that's not actually going to give you the resilience that you think it is, right? If the CO goes down, you're still down.
Yep.
Right.
Are organizations today, are they more focused on, is it resilience? Is it security? Is it, from an IT standpoint, where are you really seeing the focus?
I mean, it's a series of dials that everybody turns. It's not an either or. It's an absolute series of dials, and a lot of it has to do with the maturity of the organization, right? I think everyone needs to be focused on security, kind of regardless. Like, you can't take your eye off that particular ball. That being said, you may be more focused on cost reduction. You may be more focused on resiliency, right? There's still a lot of organizations that, okay, they have multiple paths to the internet, but they don't have any distribution to their e-commerce site. They don't have any distribution to their kind of web front end, to how customers access, right? And so customers have to traverse 100% of the public internet, whatever that is, to get to the one entry point for their particular, web gateway, as it were, right? That's bad. That's not acceptable. If you operate globally, you should have global access points to a resilient, reliable backbone that you do have some control over. And by control, I simply mean you pay for it.
Right.
If I pay for it, there's an SLA. If there's an SLA, there's someone I can call. I can't call because some random link somewhere controlled by an ISP somewhere that I have no relationship with went down. Right. And so when we really start looking at resilience, those are the things we need to start looking at. And again, that's why tools become so important. In exactly the same way that APM is important, APM will help you identify the piece, the component of the application stack that is not responding. Right. Rather than just the app is down or the app doesn't work. Right. No, this API gateway is a problem. Or no, this particular segment of the network is the problem, or this database server is the problem, or this web front end, this piece of code, this particular link on this particular page is the problem, is really the value to APM, right? It's the granularity that APM provides to tell you exactly where to look is the same thing we look for in internet performance monitoring, right? In network performance monitoring for the public internet, to be able to tell you, hey, this particular area continues to be a problem. I think maybe we need a secure web gateway. I think maybe we need a CDN. I think maybe we need insert name of tool here in this region so we can better control that path.
That would help. Are you seeing some industries more advanced than others?
Financial services by far. Financial services leads the pack. Because financial services has the biggest budget.
Yeah.
Right. As a percentage of revenue,
they control the money.
Well, and they believe themselves to be tech companies. They are, in fact, tech companies. They're also in the biggest fight to capture the new ways of work.
Yeah.
Right. The days of people carrying a checkbook, they're long gone. No one carries a checkbook anymore. And if you don't carry a checkbook and you don't have to have checks printed, it means you can actually change banks with some frequency.
Yes.
Right. And all we've seen year over year is people have less and less and less loyalty to their financial institution. And therefore, financial institutions need to be more and more digital and they need to be more and more prepared for meeting customers where they're at and where they want to be. Second would likely be healthcare. All the way on the other end of the spectrum is likely manufacturing, with retail being right in front of that.
Yeah, I would say some manufacturing. Some of the folks that we're working with today in manufacturing, some of the car manufacturers today, the
Absolutely right.
leading electric ones are doing some amazing things.
Sure, there's 100,000 manufacturing companies, right? And so you have everything from ultimately 3-person shops to to Fortune 50 companies that fit on manufacturing, right? And their level of digitization is a wide spectrum. However, statistically, still manufacturing spends the least on technology of any industry. We are seeing that change, right? If you look at rate of change of investment year over year, we're seeing manufacturing lead the pack. For what it's worth, we're also seeing manufacturing as the #1 target for cyber attacks today.
Yeah.
Right. So those two things definitely go hand in hand.
So I know we're getting close on time. Maybe just a couple of more questions. When you start looking at how people are interacting today with businesses and really even e-commerce, it could be banking, really the move is to mobile.
Without a doubt.
And that shift has definitely happened. What are you seeing organizations doing to really handle that change and manage that change?
The biggest thing that I see organizations doing is really shifting from kind of a UX to CX focus, right? Shifting from what does my user experience look like from a design standpoint to what does my customer experience look like end to end, right? Because to your point, mobile adds a whole nother layer of complexity on top of what you're already trying to do. The screen's smaller, it's all touch, right? So the user experience kind of has to be tighter than it does on web when I'm aiming with 1 pixel versus when I'm aiming with my big stubby fingers. They also shift networks kind of seamlessly, right? I may start a transaction on my home Wi-Fi and shift to a mobile network as I get in the car, and kind of move through my life, move through my day. And I need to be able to maintain that connection seamlessly end to end, right? If the transaction's interrupted, well, then I haven't bought, right? Mobile equals instant gratification, right?
Sure.
So if I'm not instantly gratified, then I may actually realize I don't need the thing, or I may be willing to go back and start my shopping experience some more, right? It's interesting. I worked in the car business kind of when the internet and buying on the internet became popular, and it went from the salesperson was your expert to the customer was far more of an expert about the car than the salesperson was, right? Yeah. It was likely, and it was funny. We had a whole, at the time, we set up a whole internet department. So every single internet lead came to the internet department, which was much more transactional and filled with absolute experts, because the customer came in so much better. I want all of these options. I don't want any other options. I want this exact color, these wheels. I've shopped four different places. I want this payment. I want this dollar amount. Like, you know what I mean? They came in.
Exactly. And here's the price I'm going to pay because I've researched it. Mm-hmm. And this site says I can get this car for this price.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And that hasn't changed. If anything, it's just become worse. Right. Because now there's 50 places I can buy anything from. And there's aggregators that'll tell me the best price and the best place. And so you really have one opportunity to capture business. Right. And so really focusing on what is that experience and what is that experience going to be like, and being aware when that experience changes also becomes really important. Right. If your application response isn't going to meet 200 milliseconds, keep in mind, it's not 200 milliseconds transaction end to end. It's 200 milliseconds to make me feel like something happened.
Right.
So how do I make sure the customer is informed that something is happening so it doesn't feel like it's dead?
Yeah, right? And basically the snap of a finger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exactly. So maybe last question. Given all of this and the rate of change, what's the future look like?
I actually think that's a really complex question, because the rate of change is so fast that anyone that says in 10 years it'll look like this, likely is just guessing. So I think the future, is going to be interesting. I think the future is, I need to be able to get what I want wherever I'm at, as quickly as possible through whichever place I wish to purchase from. Right? Be that a marketplace like Amazon or Walmart or Alibaba, or whether that's your website itself. And if I'm going to buy from your website, I actually want it to be a little bit more personal. I don't want it to be cheaper. I don't need cheaper. Cheaper is not what I'm doing, right? But I do want the experience to be better. I do want the experience to be a little bit more personal, right? And so I would really think about that. And personal can mean just telling me what's going on. I wouldn't mind going to your website and seeing, hey, everything's up, and all of our experience is good. And then, hey, this is taking a little while. Yes, there's an outage in China, and this is what's happening. Or there's an outage in Canada, or there's an outage in Denver, and this is what's happening, right? That personalization, I think, is really going to be the difference between the survivability of the small mid market and those who don't who can't compete with Amazon and companies like Amazon, because Amazon's becoming less personal over time. Marketplaces are becoming less personal over time. And so I think you have the ability to win by being personal. Being
personable, knowing your customer.
Correct.
And as much as you can. Howard, this has been so much fun. Thank you for joining us today. So let me share this last slide. I am going to put up a poll. Here at Catchpoint, we'd love to be able to help you all from an internet resilience standpoint. We deliver an amazing internet performance monitoring solution that leading customers really across the globe are leveraging to help improve their customer and employee experiences. So let me put up this poll before I get yelled at for not opening it fast enough. And poll is now open. Feel free to vote. The CXO decision brief is available. So please download that brief, and anything we can do to help, we're happy to do so. Howard, any last words?
No, if you'd like to carry on the conversation, this has been great. If you'd like to carry on the conversation, the best way to get me is on LinkedIn. It's in/Howard Holton.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks again. This has been fun. And we will hopefully continue the conversation on catchpoint.com as well. Great. All right. Thank you.